Hi, today on episode 354 of your favorite daily podcast, a couple of things, a podcast about things. I talk with my friend Fari about doing the courageous thing, travel, self-improvement, and such topics. I'm sure you enjoyed the episode. Happy listening. Hi, on today's episode of the podcast, I have a friend here, a very special guest. Her name is Fari, and I'm going to ask her to introduce herself.
Hi, Ladi. As you said, my name is Fari. Originally from Nigeria, I currently live in Amsterdam. I work as a designer, and outside of my day job, I enjoy doing a couple of things: traveling, weightlifting, cooking, reading, sleeping, and any other thing that helps me to be better. So I think that would be how I would describe myself.
I like how sleeping is in this list because same.
Of course, 100%. Like my sleep is very important to me.
And I know that you're currently sacrificing your early bedtime for this recording. So
Exactly.
thank you
Like I
very much. I
remember,
appreciate that.
yes, I remember we talked about this. Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So some things I want to ask based on your
Mhm.
intro, but we'll come back to those. Yeah, so second standard question is how do we know each other?
Great question. I think we met on Twitter
Mm-hmm. This is
that time.
becoming a theme as well.
But it was that time, when design and UX, yeah, Twitter
Yeah.
Nigeria was kind of like buzzing and all. And then I think you were like the only UX researcher like everyone knew.
Yeah.
Like back then. And we were following each other. And I think through Usable, and then we met at Usable. And I think I wrote an article that you added on Usable, but it was through like the UX community. That's how we met. I think that's like over 9 years ago, I think. That's a long time.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a long
Yeah, I mean,
time.
because I started doing UX for 20, I was part of the UX community for a while, like even before I started doing UX.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, whoa, wow,
Time flies.
that really flies. Wow. Okay. Yeah, and what's on your mind today?
Whoa, I'm looking forward to my holiday. That's what's on my mind today. I'm exhausted. That's what's
I,
on my mind today, to be
I feel
honest.
like everybody's in holiday mode basically at this point. But yeah,
Yes,
fair because well, today is it's like literally almost exactly a week to Christmas. So
yes, exactly. Yes, yes, yeah.
so everybody's in like holiday mode. I feel
Exactly.
that's unfortunately for me as a student, there's no really disconnecting because there's always homework and things to study waiting for me.
Right, right. I can imagine that.
But I've
Wow.
decided that for the first couple of days, I'm actually not going to do anything. And we'll
Very
see
important.
what we can do with the remaining time because I need to
Yeah.
rest. Like, really, really need to rest. Anyway, okay,
Yeah.
so let's start there with like holidays and travel. And you did
Mm-hmm.
mention that one of that's literally like, I think the first thing you mentioned in your intro after I'm like Nigerian designer. So like
Yeah.
what do you like about traveling?
I think the experience,
Hmm.
one, but also for me, it's like a courageous act for me.
Hmm.
So when I do solo travel, the fact that I have to think about something where I want to go, figure out what I want to do there, book my flight, go there, like going to a place I don't know anyone, I don't probably don't know the language. Like for me, it's a courageous thing. Like I have
Hmm.
to literally tell myself that it's going to be fine, it's going to happen to me. And I like to do courageous things as much as I can so I can build that muscle. So yeah, the experience part of I'm going to enjoy the place and eat the food and see the things, but then
Yeah.
also the courageous part of I don't know this place, I don't know anyone.
Yeah.
I'm going to go there and figure it out. So for me,
Hmm.
I kind of like those two things combined. I think travel gives me that experience.
That's interesting. That's a framing that I don't think I've heard that anyone say that, at least not in those words, about
Mhm.
traveling as a actually solo traveling as a courageous act. And I know you do a lot of solo traveling, so
Yes, yes.
um that is interesting.
Hmm.
And gives perspective to something that I've always struggled to understand about solo traveling. But
Yes.
but yeah, I like that framing. And you
Mhm.
said that you like to do courageous things to build the muscle, which is great, I think. And this is reminding me of an episode I did about doing different kinds of hard things. Um
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
I can't remember the specific things I said because I remember that there were like two or three different kinds of hard things that I talked about, so I can't remember them. But I feel like this falls under one of those things where it's like, oh, it seems like such a mundane, normal thing to do.
Yes.
But for somebody, it could be really putting themselves outside of their comfort
Comfort
zone,
zone.
physically,
Exactly.
mentally, and doing it nonetheless, which is apparently
Hmm.
my new favorite word. I,
Yes.
I wrote an essay recently and then it was like nonetheless everywhere. Like, okay. Um, yeah, doing it anyways. And yeah, that's actually interesting. Something I'm going to think about for a while after this conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, what other kinds of things you do that fall under this courageous acts?
Yeah. That's a great question. I realized I said that's a great question recently as a buffer. When somebody asks me a question, I don't have an answer. I'll be like, oh, that's a great question. So I can think about what I want to say.
Mm,
I'll say I think it's just in daily activities, like saying something that I usually not say, or like share my opinion in a space where I usually would not, and I'll be like, nobody's gonna beat me, just try to say it. So
mm.
those small things, they might seem small, like you just talked about now, that they might
Yeah.
seem within for other people. But for me, small things like, oh, telling somebody no, or I don't think that's good, that's right. Like for me, even though I would do it, it takes like a couple of seconds for my brain to be
Yeah.
like, that feels hard, but I'm gonna do it regardless. So it's like small things here and there. But in my mind, these are courageous things. The more I do those things, the easier it gets over time.
Would coming on this podcast count as a courageous act?
Okay, because it's not a video, then I'll say no. If it was a
Oh,
video, I
okay.
would be like, oh my God. Then it would have been like a courageous act for me, definitely.
Okay, cool, cool. Um, what is your favorite place that you've traveled to and why?
Hmm. My favorite, I don't think I have a favorite particular place, but I feel like I have favorite experiences. I feel like being
Yeah,
at the beach
okay.
at sunset, not sunset, actually sunrise. It's like there are
Mm,
times where I've been at the beach before sunset and then I was standing, like just like my feet on the ground and like
mm,
the way of everything. And the sun, like it just felt so real. I can't really explain it. Like I feel like
yeah.
kind of like the things that I like being in
Mm,
nature, being in a quiet space where I can reflect and I just enjoy the moment. Or like going like on a boat cruise. I remember when I went to Greece, we had like this 2.5 hour boat cruise and then we watched the sunset. And I can remember sitting down and just seeing like the mountains and things. And I was just in awe. I'm just like,
mm,
God really created all of these things. And I'm just here sitting and experiencing it. So I
yeah,
enjoy things like that, like just seeing things like in nature, being in nature. I really like it.
yeah. That's really nice.
Hmm.
Okay. Let's move from traveling a bit. You talk about weightlifting. How did you start doing that?
Great. No, I was going to say great question again.
Mm,
How did I get into weightlifting? It's an interesting question. So growing up, I kind of stumbled into working out. I don't even know about this Shanti Insanity workout. It was a thing back
yeah, it
then.
was a thing.
I
There was
think,
a time.
yes, my auntie,
I never
yes,
did it, Sha.
yes. So my auntie had it, and then I saw her doing it, and I started doing it. But I'm just like, I don't really know about this.
No, that
Then
thing's
one,
actually insane. The name is correct.
yes, yes, and I think I can't remember. Maybe I was following somebody on Twitter or something, and I started talking about bodybuilding.com, and I checked that bodybuilding.com. I'm like,
Body what?
bodybuilding.com,
Oh, okay.
and I was like, oh. Interesting. Like,
Mhm.
cause like I saw like these people like really fit, like jacked up and like toned. I'm like, this looks nice. For some reason, I just felt like I would like to look like that. And that kind of started like my weightlifting journey. Like I was like, I
Um,
want to look fit, strong, and all of that. Like just seeing the video, how they I'm like, this is interesting. And that's kind of like how that started. And that was like years ago, a very long time ago.
I was going to say, how long have you been doing that?
So that would be, I would say 20, maybe 15, 2015,
Ah,
maybe. That's like almost 10. I think it's probably 2015 or 16. I can't remember exactly the year. I probably will have to go back and check, but it was around that time.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why, but I thought it's something that you said because I know you like work out a lot and do a lot of weightlifting, and I actually
Mhm.
thought that it was
Recent.
something you started doing when you moved here.
No, I started doing it back when I was in Lagos. Yes, I had a gym not too far from me, and I used to go. But then I moved to another place, and they didn't have a gym, so I could not do it as much as I wanted. So when I came to Amsterdam, I'm like, yes, now I have all the opportunity to do everything that I want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice. So what's like wh what has this years of weightlifting or doing these physical exercises for you?
Hmm.
What has it done for you in whatever way be beyond? I mean, there's the obvious physical thing,
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
like, did it start out as a hard or challenging thing that you wanted to do, or what was it?
No, I didn't really start like a hard thing because it seemed interesting and I wanted to do it. And if I want to do something, I would do it. So obviously, outside of the physical part, I think there's the mental part. Like you get to build certain character traits like self-discipline because it requires self-discipline to go to the gym, even when you don't feel like it. There's that part. There's also the part of like resilience. Like people like, oh, I want to lift this much, but I'm not able to right now. So I'm willing to like go like take small steps for like a period of time for me to get there. So it's like you also build resilience with that.
Mm.
So yeah, there's the self-discipline, there's the resilience, there's just the mental toughness. Like I remember writing something on Instagram like when I'm in the gym, I feel like a warrior, but when I'm outside the gym, I feel like a softie. It's funny because I feel like when I
Like
enter
a
the gym,
what?
it's like when I'm in the gym, I feel like a warrior, but when I
Uh-huh.
come outside, I feel like a softie. It's like my
Oh,
personality
okay.
changes in the gym. I just enter the gym, it's like yes, like I can do anything, and
Mm,
that feels great. And I leave the gym, it's like oh cool, I'm just quiet. So
mm,
it's like I have like a different, I won't say a different personality, but I feel like I embody like a different part of me when I enter the gym and I like lay down the bar and the weight. It just feels different. I like that feeling of I'm about to do this thing that feels creative, but I'm gonna do it.
mm. That is very interesting because I think about one of the first things I said really, which was about like, oh, I want to do this, but I can't do it yet. But I
Mhm.
will get there. I love that because honestly, like literally the first few times that I went to the gym to do anything, when I did not live sitting out, I said, whoa, 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 please.
Yeah, like I'm not interested anymore.
But then I still went back, sha, because I
Yeah.
realized what she said that like a lot of things, and is even outside of like working out in many, many things. A lot of times in the beginning, we may not be able to do it well, or we may not know how to do it, or we may not be doing it at the skill or pace or capacity with which we would like to.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
But as you keep going, right,
Yes.
then yeah, you eventually are able to
Right.
do it, even if it takes really
Wow.
long or really short time. You're sure able
Yeah.
to do it.
And I
And
like weightlifting because you have numbers too. Because in life, sometimes you might not have like metrics to be able to measure things. Like you just in your
mhm.
mind, I feel like I'm better. But it's like, it can be like, oh, 2 months ago, I only used to lift 20 kg, but now I can lift 100. Like there's the number. And seeing the number
Yeah.
gives you like, oh, yes, there's an 80 kg difference. But in life, sometimes you cannot really measure something. Like,
Mm.
oh, no, last year I was more, less patient now. Now, like, yes, you can feel it, but there's not like, it's not really clear. You just get a
Yeah.
feeling. But this one, you can see the number that, oh, I used to
Yeah.
lift X and now I can lift Y.
I totally get that because I feel like a lot of the time we when we can't like put a number to something or quote unquote concretely slash quote unquote objectively measure how we are better at something, it's harder for us to see that
Yes.
progress. So I
Mm-hmm.
see how, I mean, like I think about it as well with, and I remember saying this a while ago about like my boxing classes, for example, even
Mm-hmm.
though it's not necessarily numerical in the same way that weightlifting is, there's a qualitative slash quantitative measure for me of like, oh, I can do this better. It's like, oh, I went through the whole class without realizing that 1 hour had passed. As opposed to before,
Exactly.
where like 10 minutes in, I'm
10
like,
minutes,
when is this one
you're like,
hour
oh
going
my
to
God, I
end? I
can't do
beg, I can't continue like
this.
this. Or like, oh, the
Yeah.
last time I did 10 push-ups and I was not tired. now I did
Mm-hmm.
15 at a stretch without stopping. Like,
Stopping everything.
those
Yeah.
are things markers. But now, question for you. In areas where measuring progress is less quantitative in that sense, how do
Mm-hmm.
you measure your progress?
Outside of weightlifting,
Yeah, like just in general in your own life. Like, and I know because you do a lot of like self-reflection,
development,
self-improvement, all these
yeah,
things. So how do you, for the
yeah,
areas where it's not really easy to put a number to it, like, okay, last year I could only lift 10 kg, now I can lift 50.
yeah,
How
yeah.
do you measure your progress in something?
I think it's just more of like just reflect like how did I used to do this before and how do I do it now? So for example, let's say what can I give that as an example? Let's say last year, for example, maybe something happened in my team and I didn't speak up. And maybe I came into this new year, I'm like, I want to be more courageous. I'm like, okay, so what are the courageous things I did this year? And I can see, oh, this time I did speak up and I did do that. So I think it's just more of like reflecting and kind of just analyzing what you did before and what you're doing now. Maybe that would be one example, like
Mm.
just self-reflection.
Yeah. I just wonder about that because a lot of times, especially now that year's ending, we're going to be doing a
Mhm.
lot of like personal reflection,
Self-reflection.
year review, all these kinds of
Yeah.
things. But me
Hmm.
personally, what I try to do with my reviews is I try to like put some things on a scale, like on a scale of 0 to 10 or 1 to 10. How would I rate this particular thing?
Hmm.
And then compare that with the next time I'm doing my reflection or review. Like, for
Hmm.
example, my one of the review templates I use, the one I use around my birthday, there's often a question about reflect on your relationship with God or something. And so
Hmm.
I kind of broke it down into different aspects, like what does my relationship with God entail? So you can say prayer or going to
Hmm.
church or obedience or whatever, and then rating each of all of those things. And
By
then the
number.
next year I look at it and see, okay, how do I, and at the end of the day, it's kind of subjective, but that's what almost all
I was
rating
gonna
things
say
are.
that. I was gonna say because for you, 8 this year might feel like a 6 because you've grown next year. Like if this year you felt like
Exactly.
reading my Bible one page a day was 8, next year maybe you've grown, I'd be like, that's 0, like that's nothing. So
Exactly.
it's
So
like
it's
it's
still
like
a
it's
bit
hard to
subjective, but the point is just like
yeah.
just finding a way to and you don't even have to quantify things to like
Hmm.
see that it's better, right? You can still use like a qualitative measure of
Yes.
yourself or your feeling or something, or
Exactly.
maybe
Your
what
feelings, yes, you
somebody
can tell
said.
sometimes.
Exactly. So
Yes.
yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things that are really hard to
No, you measure.
say
Yeah.
definitely really that this is what you should do or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Um yeah, okay. Let's see what else. Or do you want to say anything else about that?
No, not at all.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about self-improvement.
Hmm.
When you think about self-improvement, like what does that mean for you?
I think for me, it's just having a clear sense of who I want to be,
Mm-hmm.
knowing who I used to be, who I am now, and kind of figuring out the steps I'll need to take to kind of close that gap.
Mm.
That's how I interpret it.
So you said who you want to be, who you are now, and how to close the gap.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Um, so do you like how does it work for you? Like, do you like break your life into aspects and
Yeah. So funny enough, when I came to Amsterdam, that was in 2019, I stumbled upon this Instagram ad from Mind Valley. They were talking about live book. It was just like interesting. What does this mean? And the program basically kind of just gives you a clear understanding of all areas of your life. Like you're one person, but you can view your life from different lenses, like your health and fitness, your intellectual life, like your mind, then your emotional life, your character, your spiritual life, your love life, your social life, your financial life, your professional life, and your quality of life.
mm,
And then start to look into each of this category. Okay, what's my vision for this category? What's my premise or my strategy or my purpose for this category? When you're clear on that, and then figure out what do I need to do to be able to achieve that vision, and what are the things that are stopping me or blocking me, and how can I improve them basically. So
yeah.
because I have that vision, I kind of just apply that into the phase of my life that I am in at the moment.
Hmm. So, do you want to give an example, maybe something from this year or recently?
It's something from this year. What will I say I worked on this year? Um, okay, let me pick my quality of life, for example. So I live in Amsterdam for like almost 6 years. Interesting. To be 6 years, January 1st.
Whoop, whoop.
And obviously, yes. And I'm like, okay, now I've lived here for a while. Okay, it makes sense for me maybe to get a Dutch passport or two because I want to live a life where I can travel and do things and not worry about visa. That's part of my vision. I want to go to travel and see the world. And maybe getting a Dutch passport might afford me that. So
Mm-hmm.
this year, what do I need to do? Obviously, learn Dutch and do the exams, right? That would be an
Mm-hmm.
example. Like I have a vision of I want to be able to travel and do things, but what is the thing that I can do now that will help me achieve that, which is to do the exam, pass it, and then apply. So that's kind of how I look at it. There's this vision, and every year it's like, what are the things I can do now that can move me closer to the vision? And I can then get the passport and be like, you know what? I want to travel. So what are the places that I could go to that I could not go before or something? Or maybe I
Mm-hmm.
can even go more frequently than I used to. But it's just more like just knowing the vision, then you just take steps in the
In the direction.
yes, yes, towards that.
Yeah. So what are the things that you have like when you think about the different areas of your life, do you use like resources or how do you bridge the gap basically?
So I think
Or
the
how do
opportunity,
you find no, not even how do you bridge the gap? How do you figure out what the gap is? Then how do you bridge the gap?
yes. So I'm very self-aware. I think sometimes it might be too much. So I'm very aware of my behaviors and my pattern. Like I feel like there is me and there's the me that is viewing me. It's like I have this me and then there's another version of me that is watching me.
Mm,
Right. So I'm very self-aware of that. So I can easily tell like, oh, I've been doing this thing for a couple of months now. And then where did this behavior come from and why am I doing it? And then I figured that out and I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to change? What can I do? But the funny thing is, I don't know why. I feel like my life is just like, I would just find something on Instagram that answers my question. I don't know why that happens to me.
yeah.
I'm thinking about something that I want to work on. I'm just thinking about it. I'm like, God, can you just guide me on this? And I open it and somebody just created like a reel. I'm like, oh, interesting. Then I'll find like a course or like a book or a podcast or something. I'll listen to it and they give me like some guidance. I'm like, cool, I'm gonna try to incorporate that and I will do that. And then that's just kind of like how it happens for me, to be honest.
Yeah. I think that's interesting because I think that sometimes like when you have a question about something, if you're like, especially if you're consciously and actively thinking about it,
Hmm.
you start to sometimes see things randomly pop up that
Yes,
match the
that
question that you
thought.
have or the thought that you're
Yeah.
thinking or things like that. And I find that to be very, very, very interesting. I don't know.
There's a psychology thing around. It's like when you're thinking about a yellow car. You not start to
Actually,
see yellow
yes.
cars even if you don't
I don't think it's
see
like
yellow
those
cars.
things are just starting to pop up. I think it's that you're becoming more conscious of them
Of
because
that thing,
the
so then you see
question
it.
is on your mind. So those
Mm-hmm.
things have always been there properly, probably, but
Yeah, but you're not
it
seeing it
just
yet.
didn't register in your consciousness. I actually think I have an episode about
Exactly.
this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that we say it, yeah, it's how your brain has a system, the reticular activating system, because you can't pay attention to everything
Everything.
that is happening. So it filters out things. But when you start to think about something, your brain is like, oh, this is something to pay attention to, and it lets it pass through your mind, basically. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess that's what's happening there. And that's
Exactly.
interesting. It's like
Mm-hmm.
how sometimes you be like, oh, I thought about buying this and I started seeing Instagram ads for the thing.
Yes.
Maybe that's also what's happening. Those ads have always been there, but you didn't pay attention to them because you didn't
Yeah.
it wasn't relevant. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Um, okay. Is there anything that you want to talk about particularly? Any
No, no, nothing in particular.
okay. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
I don't have prepared questions for these things, so it's just as we're talking, anything that comes
Random.
to my mind. Let's see. Well, something again because it's the end of the year, and something I've been asking people a lot is what has been the most exciting thing that's happened for you this year?
Exciting thing.
The thing
Oh,
that you like the most that happened this year?
no, no, that's a great question. Wow, why is nothing coming up in my mind? I think maybe I've met people that maybe I've met different people, obviously, but I think this year I've met certain types of people that maybe showed me areas of myself. Like I'm like, oh, I didn't know that, or I've not experienced this before. Yeah, I think that would be one of the things I would think was exciting for me this year.
Like in ways um that you can improve or
Not improving. I think maybe because how do I put it? Not like improve, like I think people are like mirrors, like
mm-hmm.
relationship are mirrors to you. So as you
Mm.
meet different people, you see areas of yourself that you probably are not aware of in other relationships because this person is a different person or a new person. They bring in new experiences in your life. And you're like,
Mm.
oh, I didn't know that I think like this or I have this thought or something, or maybe I
Ah,
have this behavior.
okay.
But like with new people, you experience, you see yourself in different ways. I don't know if,
I understand what you mean. So there's this idea of that people, or I think I understand what you mean. Let me just say.
yeah,
So is it something like the idea that's like the different parts of you that you may not understand or realize or that may not come out until you meet certain people, and
yes,
it's why you may behave differently in
yeah,
different groups of people, and not differently like in a fake manner
oh,
or
yes,
something, but like the things that
Mhm.
these people bring out of you or this person brings
It's
out of
something
you
better
or
than that.
is
Yeah,
different from what somebody else brings out
yeah,
of you or makes you realize
yeah.
about them or yourself or something.
Mhm. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. That would be something I would say was interesting for this year. Yeah, I think what other things, but it's not coming to mind right now.
That's why I feel like it's so interesting that like your response was something also like very self-reflective.
I think that's like my default
Because
setting. I
that's
always
your
like there's
exactly.
pro and there's con for that. Like my default setting is always like this self-awareness thing. I'm always like it's good, but sometimes I'm like maybe too much.
No, I feel like it's just what is important to you.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
So, and that's what comes up. And I literally had this conversation with a different guest just a few days ago about, because she was
Mhm.
like, her whole episode turned out to be about running. I'm like, that's what's important to you right now. And that's your main interest. So it makes
Yes.
sense that it will be the thing that comes up a lot
Mm.
in the conversation. And that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. Okay. Let's see. What else do I want to ask? Maybe I should actually prepare a list of backup questions for when
Just in case.
talk about, but this is almost the end of the year. So
Yeah.
let's see. What's something that you really enjoy doing that people who know you might not believe that you really enjoy doing it, or they may find it they may be shocked to find out that you actually really enjoy doing this thing.
To be honest, is sleeping. And I never talked about it at the beginning of like for me, it's very important for me that I sleep. I feel like when I don't sleep, everything else doesn't work properly.
Hmm.
I feel like the way my body works is like if I don't sleep properly for a couple of days, it's like I have this sleep debt that I have to repay. If I don't repay it, it starts to pile up, and then because I am very productive in the morning, like I wake up by 4 a.m., for
Hmm.
example. I wake up by 4, and from 4 to 10 a.m., 6 hours, like my brain is at the highest capacity, like
Yeah.
100%. Like that's when I do all my personal project stuff, read stuff, learn. That's when I do it. So if I don't sleep for it means I cannot wake up. And if I can wake up early, my morning is ruined. And when my morning is ruined, I feel like half of my day is ruined. So I take it really seriously. Of course, I cannot always be perfect with my sleep. Like I will get 8, 9 hours every day, but I try my best that I sleep early so that I can rest, my body is
Yeah.
well, I can then do everything I need to do. So I know it's the randoms, like it's just sleep. I'm like, I know.
No, I think it's no,
Yeah.
like this is also how I feel about my sleep. Like
Mhm.
I need my full, and that's probably why I've been so tired this past couple of days because I've not been sleeping my full 8 to 9 hours.
Exactly.
I've had to stay up till late or wake up like my sleep is interrupted to take medicine,
Hmm.
and I have to wake up early to go to school and all
Yeah.
those kind of things. So yeah, like I totally 100% agree. I
It's
agree with
really important.
you on that. And I like
Yeah.
that you know like your peak hours of like this is the time where
Oh,
I
I
do the
have to
best
learn
work.
that. I need
How
to
did
learn.
you
I
figure
learned.
that out?
So I've always been like an early bird, like sleep early. I've always known that. right? But the
Mhm.
thing is, because in my mornings before I'll wake up, I'll do like my morning, like brush my all those things, and I'll go to the gym and I'll take a walk and I'll do all this physical stuff. But then realize that when I come back home and it's time for work, I'm just like, I don't feel like working. It's like 11 o'clock. It's like I'm dragging myself, and that happened for years. I cannot figure out. I need to beat myself up, like maybe I'm lazy, I'm just procrastinating.
Yeah.
I'm like, after like noon, I noticed that my brain capacity is like lower, and I struggle to actually do any focused work. So I kept reading stuff. I read deep work. I started reading stuff, and I started saying different things. I'm like, I'm going to try to figure out what time I'm going to work, and then let me test to see. So I feel like I'm my own lab, but I'm always experimenting with my routine. Like I'll do something by 7 a.m. and it's not working. I'm like, let me move it 8 a.m. Let me see what happens. So I started trying to figure out that, and I figured that when I wake up, my brain is disharpened. That's when I can really learn. I'm like, oh, so I just try to start to do it Monday, and it kind of stuck with me. But the only issue is now I now have to figure out when I'm going to work out because I'm not using my workout time to do my focused work. So I have to figure that out. But I just kind of practiced and experimented over time, and I figured that it was the morning was the best time for me to do anything that's extremely important. I have to do it before noon, unless I will have to drag myself to complete it by the end of the day.
So you were just like paying attention to yourself and how you were, you know, moving in the
Mm-hmm.
world.
Yes, because I'm like, why am I always, because I have this thing with self-discipline. I'm always like, oh my God. Like I have this, I always sound with self-discipline. People always tell me, oh, Fari, you're so self-disciplined.
I
But
feel
in my
like you're
mind,
one
I'm
of the
like,
most
no.
self-disciplined people I know, to be
Oh my
honest.
God. It's funny because people tell me that a lot, but then in my mind, I don't feel like that. So I'm always like, why are people always telling me I'm self-disciplined, but I don't think I'm self-disciplined? What's the problem? There's a disconnect there. How is a disconnect with what I'm doing and what people are saying? And then I figured that it's not like I'm not self-disciplined, just that how I experience myself is like I'm struggling with it. I'm like, that should not be how it feels. It has to be something. I should not have to struggle all the time to get things done. Even though I will do them, but I'm always struggling. Why am I struggling?
Yeah,
And I figured out, oh, it's not that I'm not so it's just like I'm not doing it at the time that is best for me. When I figured it out, I'm like, oh, now I can just fly.
yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's really good. I think like self-awareness and understanding yourself, your triggers, your things, the things that strengthen you, that move you is really important to navigate life and get the best out of your everyday, basically.
Yes.
And so you figuring out that this is the time where I'm the most, productive. These are things that keep me productive and energized, and being able to do that and,
Mhm.
generally mostly sticking to, because I imagine that there are times where you probably don't get enough sleep, or you have to go to bed later or wake up earlier than you normally would because of other responsibilities or whatever. But like just
Like
generally
things are important
create.
that sometimes you give time for that. Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so but just generally creating a routine or a schedule that aligns with your peak hours basically of the day, I guess.
Yeah, that helps. That definitely
Definitely
helps.
helps, because I feel like I might have mentioned this on the podcast before, but I remember there was a time where I was like, I'm going to be waking up at 6 a.m., 5 a.m. every day and doing things. And bro, that was the most unproductive period of my life because I was just tired the whole day. I was cranky. I was just not able to function properly. And I realized that maybe I'm just not the kind of person that is very productive at 6 a.m. Maybe that's it.
Mhm. And that's okay, exactly. Some people are productive at 1 a.m. and they'll do their best work at 1 a.m. and they're like,
Exactly.
and I'm not, so I kind of know that.
Yeah, I'm not that person, so I don't need to make myself that person. And one of the things I learned, like maybe last year or 2 years ago, was working with my strengths and leaning into my strengths rather
Yes.
than, trying to upgrade my weaknesses, quote unquote. I mean, obviously, there are some things that you need to improve, right? You
No,
can't
that's
just be
yeah,
like,
we all do,
my strength is
yeah.
this, my strength is not that. It's like you have to improve on some things. But and I think that's a thing for people to be able to find the line for themselves to say that, okay, this is my strength. And okay, for example, if you're a night owl, for example, now, but the way the world is, most jobs you need to work during the day.
Yes.
So in that sense, you need to figure out a way that enables you work during the day. Or you look for a job that will allow you work in your peak hours. You get
Mhm.
so like just finding the balance between
Mhm.
knowing your strengths and the things that energize you and being able to apply that, or as much as possible build a routine or a life, or make the choices that enable you like lean into those strengths basically,
I
I think.
agree, 100%, 100%.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think I have any other questions. Is there anything else you want to share about?
What do I want to share? Nothing top of mind right now.
Oh, I just had a question. I'm talking about courageous acts, right? So you talk about traveling as a courageous act and some of the other things. What is the what is something that you think like recently is a very courageous thing that you did? Doesn't have to be like anything big or serious. Whatever that means for you.
Courageous thing that I did recently. Wow. Hmm. Recently, what's the courageous thing that I've done? Maybe sharing my thoughts with like a new person. Like so for example, I won't say I'm not a closed off person. Like I'm generally like I will share things, but I think it takes me a while
Mhm.
based on the person. But I realized like recently I met somebody and I just realized I was very open to sharing things and I even though it seems scary, but I'm like, I'm just gonna share my thoughts. And
Mm,
I think that happens. I found that interesting because that will not be like my default setting.
yeah. Okay, that's nice.
Yeah.
And I do know, yeah, you're very like you're more reserved and quiet. And
Because when I'm in front of people that I know, I probably by default I'm quiet, but in my mind I'm like,
yeah. Okay. Do you want people to
yeah.
connect with you online if they want to?
That's not, I'm not even online right now. Like you
Fine.
mentioned that I took a break from social media. I think it's been like almost 2 months now. So I'm not even
Okay.
online. But
Oh,
my page is online, but I'm not just there to see anything anyone is saying
okay.
or commenting.
But do you want people to connect with you if they want to?
Yeah, I think what's my social media handle? It's Fari on
That's
Twitter,
Instagram, right? Okay. I'll put the
Instagram.
links in the show notes.
Yes,
All
yes.
right. Thank you so much for coming on. And thank
Thank
you
you so
guys for
much for
listening.
inviting me.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of A Couple of Things. If there was anything you found interesting or insightful or you enjoyed the episode, please do share to someone or multiple people. Like, leave a comment, and definitely do subscribe and all the nice things. Bye.